everybody, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. For those of you who are new, I am Robyn Robbins, founder and CEO of Robyn Robbins Enterprises, where I faithfully, humbly, and excitedly serve as a best-selling author, certified life coach, speaker, and advocate. Today, I want to simply come to you and talk to you about the mask. Coping mechanisms and or defense mechanisms that we tend to use, especially for those of us that have experienced a lot of trauma. For those of you who are not familiar with the channel, here we speak of and talk about all things women empowerment, as well as overcoming trauma in various aspects and areas of trauma. Quick disclaimer, I am not a psychologist, I am not a counselor, a therapist, anything of that nature. However, I am a certified life coach in which I do transformational coaching to women in hopes to help them overcome traumatic life experiences. So really quickly, without further ado, let's get in. Now, if you see me looking down, it's only because of my notes that I have here. I value your time, so I want to move through this rather quickly. First up, passive aggressiveness. Passive aggressiveness is a deliberate and or masked way of expressing covert feelings of anger. Now, little side note, the feelings that one feels is not always anger. It could just be something really simple. It doesn't always have to be a feeling of anger. It in most cases is actually a feeling of fear. But for the sake of definition wise, and we'll say anger. Okay. Now let me give you an example about that. Let's say someone calls me and they're on the phone and they're like, "Hey girl, I really have so much going on." Excuse my dog. She's a mess. I have so much going on. I really just, need to get over here and I need to do that. And but I'm just so overwhelmed. I just have so much going on. I have this to do and this to do and this to do and this to do. And oh my God, it's just so much. I don't know what to do. Now, that is a form of passive aggressiveness. When what it is that that person knows what to do, but they don't want to be outright with it. They don't want to just come forth with it, if that makes any sense. So instead of just saying outright and out front, "Hey girl, I got a lot going on. I was wondering if you had any availability in your schedule to see if you could come over here and do this for me while I tend to these things over here." Instead of just saying that, they do the ring around the rosy. That is a form of passive aggressiveness. And so that's the example that we'll go with, because I wanted to kind of show you how passive aggressiveness doesn't always have to come in the form of hiding anger, how, it can come in different forms. And my tip and or practical tool to help combat this quote unquote coping mechanism and defense mechanism, just in case you're wondering why I'm calling it that, is because for most people that have experienced trauma, we tend to naturally develop mechanisms to help us get through the trauma and or to help us live, if you will, in the quote unquote present moment, not realizing that these coping mechanisms will only serve us to a certain extent. And we get to a point where those coping mechanisms are no longer healthy and they no longer serve us for who we want to be or where we want to go. So my tip and or practical tool for fighting passive aggressiveness and or correcting the behavior would be simply to practice saying exactly how you feel, or practice saying exactly what you want. My second tip or tool for that would be to fight the fear of confrontation or denial of anger and any other emotion. So what does that mean? Most people fall into passive aggressiveness because they don't like confrontation. The trauma that they've experienced in the past has made them fear confrontation. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And so when a person doesn't want confrontation, or they are afraid of the response that they will receive, they often retreat to passive aggressive behaviors. And so, you know, practice feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Fear is inevitable no matter what part and aspect or area of your life. We will all feel fear at some moment. However, it is so important to feel the fear and do it anyway. Make the decision to do it anyway. Next up is denial and deflection. Denial and deflection. Refusal to accept and or avoiding by denying the existence of a problem or reality. So, often when one has experienced a lot of trauma, you know, we tend to get into a place of denial. Denial is a coping mechanism to help us escape our actual reality. So if that reality is harsh to us, if it's uncomfortable, if it's unpleasant, we tend to deny that it's actually happening, or deny that, you know, it is something that we couldn't avoid. You know, it was something that we had no choice in, if that makes any sense. Deflection is kind of similar, but we kind of take on that avoidance, but at the same time, we may change the conversation or begin to compliment the person. Just all these different things that we will do in order to deflect, in order to deny that particular reality and or problem. Okay, so my tip and or practical tool for denial and deflection would simply be to reflect and accept. Again, reflect and accept. So reflect on that thing. Now, depending on what, you know, where you're at in your life and where you're at in the process of healing your traumas, I would recommend that you do assisted reflection, meaning you do reflection with a counselor, a therapist, or a psychologist, whatever your preferences are, and or even a life coach. It just really depends on where you're at in your process of healing. That way, when you reflect with a balance, and you don't reflect yourself into a deeper, darker hole, if that makes any sense. But it's important to reflect on that thing. And as you're reflecting on the circumstances, on the issues, whatever the case may be, and you begin to accept, this is what it is, this is what happened, I had no choice in this, or I had no hand in this, or even if I did have a hand in this, this is just what it is. I cannot cry over spoiled milk. I can't change it, but I accept it for what it is, and begin to shift your perspective and move. But it's only when you reflect and accept that thing that you can shift your perspective and then move your focus. Okay? The last and the third tip, the last and third coping mechanism we'll talk about is called escapism. One of my favorites, because depending on how it's done, it can actually be a coping mechanism that you can keep. Most coping mechanisms and or defense mechanisms we have to throw out or throw away after a while, but this is one you can keep depending on where you're at in your healing process. Let me explain. So first, escapism is the actions people take to help relieve persisting feelings. It is also the avoidance of unpleasant, scary, boring, or banal aspects of life. So you can see here how escapism could be good and it could be bad, right? Because anything that, you know, we avoid, that's not really healthy for us in terms of growth and becoming the person that we truly desire to be. But at the same time, if you have something that's really pressing on you to help you gain clarity and or process it in a healthy way, sometimes it's good to walk away from a thing for a moment, relieve ourselves so that we have the focus and the clarity that we need to go back to it and then tackle it. So you see how escapism is kind of dual here? It can be something that we need to get rid of, or it could be something that we need to keep, depending on how we utilize it. So that leads me to my practical tips and tools. My practical tips and tools would simply be balance. That's kind of what I've already spoken about. Balance with escapism is a healthy thing. If that makes any sense, excuse me. Balance with it is healthy. Okay? Again, it could really, really serve us if we have the correct balance with it. But if we abuse escapism, then it's just not healthy, and it'll become a coping mechanism that you just altogether need to get rid of. And my second tip or tool would be perspective. Perspective. Okay? So, in other words, ask yourself a series of questions. Why is it that I feel the need to escape from this particular thing? Let me give you an example. I'm the type of person, and even now I use escapism, but I use it with balance, which keeps it healthy. I'm the type of person that when things begin to be too much, I begin to ask myself a series of questions that help me process what it is that I'm exactly feeling, experiencing, and going through. Often escapism is a coping mechanism that is utilized when I'm asking myself and taking myself through this process, or taking a client through this process, okay? Once you ask yourself, what am I feeling? What is it that I'm experiencing? What is it that I'm going through? We then derive at the question, well, what do I need to do to help this situation, or to help me feel better or do better? And often I say to myself, what is it that I need to alleviate, or that I should alleviate immediately, that's causing unwanted feelings and or stress? Now, again, you really, really, really have to be mature with this, because you don't want to alleviate something that's supposed to be there. Again, how can we grow without different situations and or experiences that we need to go through in life in order to become the person that we have been created and are supposed to become, right? So you have to really have a healthy balance with this in order to appropriately continue to use escapism. So again, balance and perspective. Balance and perspective. Escapism will help you to, again, like I stated earlier, gain the clarity that you need so that you can have a fresh outtake or outlook and perspective. Okay, so that's all for today. I just wanted to talk to you about some coping mechanisms and or defense mechanisms that we utilize. Some of them, I call it the mask, because some of them most of them are really not healthy. Really not healthy for us, and it's just something that once we get to a level of maturity, we really should just kick to the curb. But escapism is that one that, again, with balance and perspective, can be used in a really healthy way. For instance, people that are artistic, or that tend to dance and or write and form these different types of expressions that are therapeutic to help them rationalize and cope with what they're going through, that's a form of escapism, but it's a healthy, balanced, therapeutic form of escapism. So that's basically the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking this time to be with me today, and I hope this has empowered you. If you are interested in kicking some coping mechanisms to the curb because you know that they no longer serve you, you know that they're not really healthy for you or helping you, and you would really like to overcome this particular area in your life, feel free to contact me at www.robynrobbins.com, and I will leave the link below for a free transformational strategy session that I promise you will change your life. You're going to love it. So thank you so much for your time, you guys, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.